Welcome. I am Dr. Patrice Berry, licensed clinical psychologist, and here I share educational, no, that's not what I do. I share legal and educational news from a psychological perspective. So glad to have you all here today for our Saturday live stream. I will be monitoring the chat if you all have questions along the way. My thoughts here is that we are going to start out with first if you need a background of this case, so we are talking about the Deobra Redden case, and this came out of Las Vegas. I believe it was January 3rd. I could be wrong on the date, but back in early January, there was this huge incident where he attacked the judge. Like that is all caught on camera and was seen by us all. And today I want to take a brief look at some of the family statements because this I'm completely supportive of his family, supporting their family member, and as a licensed psychologist that works with people that have serious mental illness, I also just wanna take a step back to look at where's the role of personal responsibility in all of this as well. And then also two things can be true at the same time. An individual can have a mental health diagnosis and be held accountable for their behavior. I don't think it has to be either or. And I got a great question about mental health court. So I want to break down what is mental health court in California. So this is going to vary based on your state. In my state, I'm in Virginia, we don't have a mental health court. We do have drug or alcohol court where people who are found guilty of certain crimes or sometimes they can be on a treatment path versus the criminal kind of punishment path. But if an individual, if they've been through the substance court multiple times and they keep coming back, eventually it is going to go over to the criminal side because they're gonna look at it and say, "This treatment option, this isn't working to deter this person's behavior." And I honestly think that's what happened in this situation. Now for my disclaimer, I am a licensed psychologist in the state of Virginia. I am not in any way involved in this case, and I can talk in general about mental health. I cannot talk about his mental health. This is not a psychological evaluation. I can't speak to the specifics of this case. So, once again, if you need an overview, if you know nothing about this case, please pause this video, go check out my other video. Here is the thumbnail for that one. It was wow. And when I recorded this video, I hadn't seen the family's response. And I think it's important to take a look at that. I think that'll help guide the rest of our conversation because the family really talks about feeling like the legal system failed him and that his mental health wasn't fully accounted for. Now, some of the statements that the family made, so like the family, they're not lawyers. They don't know about the law. It really, if his lawyer was aware that he wasn't in a good mental state, it would have been up to his lawyer to like let the court know, to let the judge know. There is something called competent to stand trial. And if an individual before, if they are found incompetent, so like if a person is actively seeing and hearing things, if they think the judge is like the devil or something. Like if they're not in their right state of mind, their lawyer can ask for a competency hearing. That happened within the Lori Vallow case. She ended up having to get her competency restored, which often includes medication and different things like that, so that a person can participate in their trial. In my opinion, and if y'all don't follow Dr. G Explains, Dr. G did a really, really good video that really the best predictor of future aggressive behavior is past aggressive behavior. And an individual can just kind of be triggered and have this type of reaction. Dr. G made some really good observations that Deobra seemed to have a lot of energy. So when he was talking, in my opinion, he seemed lucid, like he didn't seem as though he now a person can seem okay and be hearing voices. That is something that can happen. And the family says that they feel his fight or flight response was activated. And so, thank you, Amber, for putting a link to that to that future to that video down there. Thank you to my mods. I so appreciate each and every one of you. Let's listen to this video, and I'm starting about 4 minutes and 48 seconds in. The family starts talking maybe about 2 minutes in. The individual that's gonna start talking is his sister, and the other individual is his foster mother. All right?
He tried to speak for himself, which I just think he shouldn't have never been allowed to take the stand or speak on his own behalf because of his condition.
What was your thought when you saw this video that went viral? I know obviously we're talking about
Yes, I just think his reactions were not premeditated. It was triggered because he seemed to have been pleading for his freedom. He has been off his psych meds since he got out of jail, but because he doesn't have an appointment until March of this year, so he has not taken anything at all. And I think when the judge says, it's time for you to get a taste of, became a trigger, and in his mind, he felt threatened. We all have the capabilities to do what Deobra did, and that is to leap that high when our fight or flight mechanism response is triggered when we're threatened. We can jump that high. We can leap that high. So in his mind, it's realistic that his life was feeling threatened, and that's what happened.
Do you think that if the judge didn't say that last line, that this would be a different story?
I strongly believe that. I strongly believe that because it was that statement that was the trigger.
Have you had any communication with him since Wednesday?
No, I haven't.
I have. And actually, once we found out that he didn't appear in court on that day, my mind automatically went to, what did you do to him? Where is he at? When I came, media everywhere, and I go over to the jail, and I'm trying to do the visits, and there's no visitation for him at this moment. Then why? Where is he? He hasn't called, but apparently Tony Abatangelo, a good attorney that I know, was able to access someone from the inside to actually call, and they called me last night. And I explained to Deobra, like, it's not a circus, what you did, no way do we condone it, but I know your struggles, and I know the voices that you hear, and I just felt I tried to soothe them and, say, just come to court and, whatever's handed down, just take it. Like, what else can you really truly do? But I just felt like to even be going back in front of her courtroom, that was totally
Elaine, unmute your mic. I'm sorry. So this interview was done after he was sentenced by the judge that he attacked. If she did not sentence him, it would have delayed his sentencing. Okay. And to me, she was for her to enter the record the way that she did, to me, she did not seem upset in any way. And I played that part. So if you haven't checked out the last one, I played the judge's sentencing. And I think that's at the beginning of this video by Law and Crime. But this judge, to me, she was better than me. Like there's no like she was so calm. She did not seem afraid. Okay? So she was the I mean, technically, she was a victim of his physical attack, and she had every right to not go like, if she did not feel she could be impartial and sentence him, she would have had to recuse herself from the case. I think she really looked at it legally, and she was like, "I already had the sentence written down. Let's just go on ahead and proceed, and I'll be done with this." And I think it was her way to keep her control and keep her power. So this is a good place to stop and talk about a victim mentality versus a survivor mentality. And when I say victim mentality, that's in no way blaming the person. Okay. So I talk about this from a non judgmental standard. Okay. I talk about this from a totally non biased, non judgmental standard. And when I say victim mentality, there's some individuals that, based on everything they've been through, they get stuck. They get stuck in I don't have control over anything. They get stuck in everything bad happens to me. They get stuck over I don't have any power to control anything in my life. And that really it truly does come from a place of pain, but if an individual stays there, they are at risk for developing some narcissistic traits. They're at risk to possibly offend, or like it causes more problems down the road because they're not taking responsibility for their role. And this often happens in situations where the individual was truly victimized starting out. So Deobra Redden, he was born crack addicted. Like that's what it sounds like. His birth mother abused substances during pregnancy, and that's how he was born. So he was born with an obstacle to overcome. And I've worked with individuals that were born with high levels of alcohol in their system or high levels of other substances in their system, and they ended up getting treatment. They ended up getting help and support, and they ended up on a different path. So just because you're born this way, that does not mean that you're destined to have this doom and gloom future. Like it doesn't have to be that way. Now, it he is an African American male out in California, and that's why I really like organizations like Therapy for Black Men, Therapy for Black Women, because there are people in especially marginalized groups within the United States that have not had the same access to mental health care that other people have. So I know when I was growing up, that's why I'm 41 years old, and I'm still waiting on getting my official diagnosis of ADHD. Like growing up, my mom was kind of like 80, like you girl, just sit down. Like you can pay attention. I don't know. Like so I can get from being a part of the same community. Now we've had different lives. So I didn't grow up in foster care. He definitely has a much higher ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences. He's been through a lot. And that in no way excuses, and the family said that they weren't trying to excuse anything, and they want his mental health to be taken, like, for that to be a factor, and yet it sounds like he's already done at least it sounds like at least 2 times, and I could be wrong, there could be more, there could be less. It sounds like he's already done mental health court, and it sounds like there might be his own substance issue. It sounds like there's a lot, and it sounds like he has this history and propensity to violence where I think the courts have to step in at some point. I think they just have to. And, the extortion, so he's been charged with attempted capital M and also extortion, but I think the extortion part was thinking, if I do this, like, that his behavior would somehow intimidate the judge. So I don't know if that's the extortion angle that they're coming from, but I really, really, really think that we do people a disservice, especially people who have also been through a lot. So I call the people that I work with, I call them survivors. And my goal in treatment with them is for them to see themselves as a survivor and that I'm not their savior. So any therapist that needs to be your savior, like that's weird. Like I don't want to save my clients. I want to give them skills. I want to give them tools to help them save themselves, like to help them, with whatever skills deficits. So it sounds like he had an anger management problem. It sounds like. Okay. It sounds like he had some reality testing. So we call that an individual who has psychosis, who's hearing voices, seeing things that might be delusional. We call that reality testing. There were issues with what's real and what's not. Even if he didn't have because I think he's been diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. I've seen individuals that just have ADHD that have in the when they were triggered that they responded in an aggressive way, and there was no voice. They weren't hearing things. They weren't psychotic. The issue that I have with, because it sounds like after the incident that he was talking to himself and that he was clapping. It sounds like he was engaging in some bizarre behaviors after. In my opinion, so I would not be the legal expert that they would pay to for that the defense would pay for. Because I do think based on what I saw, and I haven't assessed him, but I do believe in people being held accountable for their behavior. Uh, he likely knew that it was wrong to try to harm someone. I don't think he was thinking. I don't think he went in with the intent to, and that's why I think he's charged with second degree or attempted. He's charged with attempted. I don't know in Las Vegas. I don't know if you have to have intent with that, but, it really is. And so I don't know if it was self-talk or I don't know if he truly was hearing and seeing things. I'm gonna play a little bit more of the family talking because it sounds like he did have a history of talking to himself, but in a way that's like you're responding to someone, you're not just talking to yourself. It's like when I go to the grocery store, I'm like, "Oh, so what did I come in here for?" Like, I might externalize my internal thought. That is different from a person who is psychotic, who's having a conversation with a voice in their head or with some other things that we can't see or hear. All right? So let's go back to this one.
Like, why? What, you want to send a message or what? At the same time, he's like she said, he suffers from mental illness. It's always been documented. It's always been stated. Even when I got him from the foster care system at the age of 12, it's documented that he was severely emotionally disturbed. By the time he was 18, he left and branched out on his own. But every day, like you say, he's trying to do better. He just got released November of 2023. 6 weeks ago? Something like that. He just got an apartment, did everything right, was in contact with parole and probation. He was released to them in their custody. So now you said you're finna send him back? But since in his mind, he didn't think he was going back. He was ready to go to work the following day. As we said in the courtroom, he got a dispatch from the Teamsters. He was just in a better place. And like you say, I just feel it's true.
Do you think that this will essentially him being sentenced will undo all the work that he's done to repair his mental state?
No, definitely not. It's only going to put him in a worse state of mind because the system has failed him, and that's how he feels. That's how he feels that since the system fails him, so he's going to come out with that mentality and go forward in life, knowing that he has pleaded everything that he can, and being in a better place is different for us all. If he can be in a better place for a month, 30 days, for him, that's a lot.
As a sister, as a mom, what was it like to see him in the spit mask and scratch?
Of course, I cried. But even from the moment that he leaped and he jumped, and this lady right here is my witness, and she was in courtroom on that day also. My first thought of mine was, please don't kill him. You know what I mean? Please, it shocked me, just as it shocked everybody else. Like, oh my God, I went to a state of shock. You know what I mean? So it was heartbreaking, really, to see him. And like I said, at the end of the day, it's about his mental state. You know what I mean? His mental, we just seem to forget that.
in his eyes, he doesn't even understand that what he did was wrong because he feels like he's just protecting his life. And any of us, if our life is threatened, we're going to react in two different ways.
And his mental diagnosis is what?
Schizophrenia, bipolar.
So he's completely mentally
He
ill,
has
right?
manic
He's
phases.
completely ill. So even so, the night before he had court, I guess he didn't really sleep because when I picked him up to come to court, I noticed he was in there. I'm like, who you talking to, Deobra? He's like, oh, nobody. I said, because as a kid, I used to tell him, like, don't start with those voices. Like, I would kind of soothe him, like, get the voices out your head. Come on, it's time to get up. It's time to go to school. It's time to do that just to keep him focused. But as he got older and he got put on the medication, I seen where he was much calmer. Because I believe so. They gave him his first dose of medication yesterday while in jail. Wow. His first dose, he said he had taken, and I could just tell in his voice that he was calmer and he didn't really realize the magnitude of how, what happened. Right. Like I said, I don't even feel it's funny. It's a show, but you know what I mean? I didn't
And
even
that should
realize.
be overlooked, like the judge said, like, oh, well.
He just
Tired of those
All right. So, once again, I want to be careful because I think the family is just supporting their brother. I am here to talk in general about my thoughts about mental health and law. And from what I saw, from where I was, yes, a person can be triggered. Yes, a person can have those diagnoses, and they can also be held accountable for their behavior. Someone brought up Daryl Brooks because Daryl Brooks tried to claim that he has bipolar disorder, that was what triggered his episode when he it was I think it was a thanks it was a parade that he drove through, and it was a horrific thing that he did, and he was found guilty of that despite his him claiming having a mental health diagnosis. Because a person can have a mental health diagnosis, and legally, it's my understanding, if they can determine right from wrong, if they understand that what they did was wrong, they can still be held legally accountable for it. And I wonder if he will plead guilty by reason of, or not guilty by reason of insanity. I don't know if California has that. I don't know if that's what he will try to plead. I don't know. And I don't know if a jury would find him guilty of it, but or find him. I don't know if a jury would say that his mental illness made it so that he didn't understand right from wrong. Because in that video, he seemed incredibly coherent, and it sounded like, from where I am, the thing that triggered him was realizing that he was going back to jail, and that was the thing that he was upset about, and that's the reason why he did what he did. And sorry, Las Vegas. I'm sorry. Las Vegas is in Nevada. My bad. Y'all know. Yes, it is Las Vegas. It is Las Vegas. So let me see Vegas's mental health, Nevada mental health court. Because the reason why I got distracted in my brain, because California has mental health court, and Nevada has it as well. So let's switch to talking about mental health court. Thank y'all. Like, please, like, correct me when I'm wrong. I I do not mind, because sometimes I say things that are I don't mean for them to be incorrect, but sometimes they are. All right. So let's go here, because I think explaining what mental health court is could be helpful. So this is out of California. Nevada, different from California, but I think their systems work similarly. And then I do have information from Nevada's, I think District 8 might be Las Vegas. I have information from their mental health court. And so It's a collaborative court that provides specific services and treatment to defendants dealing with mental illness. Mental health courts provide an alternative to the traditional court system by emphasizing a problem solving model and connecting defendants to a variety of rehab services and support networks. Um, Participants, the goal of it is for them to successfully return to society and reduce the likelihood that they will come back. It's also to increase public safety and to improve the individual's quality of life. Mental health courts only accept people that demonstrate mental illness that can be connected to the individual's illegal behavior. Participation in a mental health court is voluntary, and the defendant must consent to involvement in the program, because sometimes when you're involved in a program like this, sometimes the court gets access to your medical records, when in general mental health records would be private unless there's a court order for them not to be. And then they have a little statement of, are mental health courts effective, because they've studied this. And so if somebody has a mental health diagnosis and you place them in jail and they don't get any mental health support and they get back out and now they don't have a job, they don't have housing, that individual is at a greater risk to come back. And that's what recidivism is. They want to reduce the likelihood of the person coming back. And so they say, yes, most studies find that adult mental health courts have a positive impact on the participants' rehab and reducing criminal behavior during and after participation. Specifically, studies have found that the mental health court participants are significantly more likely to utilize treatment services. I'll make this bigger. I don't have on my glasses. There we go. Uh to utilize treatment services, less likely to be rearrested, and spend fewer days in jail as opposed to non-participants. Studying the effectiveness of mental health courts can be challenging due to several factors, blah, blah, blah. All right. So let's come back to the chat just to see what's going on here. Yes. Yes. So I love, so we call it a dialectic. So two things being true at the same time, because a person can have a mental health diagnosis and once again still be held accountable for their behavior. Karen, welcome, welcome. Temporary insanity as a defense. Yes. So you are technically pleading guilty. And in the US, I think they have not guilty by reason of insanity. I do think that is something that we have here in the US. Yes. And sometimes it varies based on the jurisdiction, what that court allows. All right. So let's go to the Las Vegas, Nevada Mental Health Court Participant Handbook. All right. Their mission statement is that they use a team approach to give justice involved individuals with serious mental illness the tools to stop criminal behavior and increase their overall wellness and stability. Now, I can give someone all the tools and then they have to use them. Okay. So just because I am giving someone the tools, it does not mean that they are necessarily going to use those tools. So that's where I talk about the fact I can be the best therapist in the world, but if my client, if they don't implement those things, they won't get better. And what I do as a therapist is I partner with them. So there's something called stages of change, and we've talked about that here before. If I need to share a link or if I need to share like a picture of it, but with stages of change, if somebody doesn't think they have a problem at all, the first step is to help them see that yes, I do have a problem. The family mentioned in their interview that they don't feel like he fully understands his mental health diagnoses. I think he didn't finish school. I could be wrong. I could be getting cases confused. And so, and the family did also say that they don't think he'll get mental health support in in jail, and every system is different. There are jails that do have psychologists, therapists that do have people on board. Because of his diagnoses, they will probably have him on some type of watch. They'll probably be monitoring his mental health, and if there is a mental health unit available, he'll likely be on it, and it does sound like he's on his prescribed medications there. On my last video talking about this case, I also talked about that sometimes when people are discharged, sometimes they are court ordered to take their medication, that they're court ordered to sometimes get the injectable medications, because there are some medications that are injected weekly or once a month, or like it's on a certain time frame. And so yes. All right. Welcome, welcome. Yes. And me and Natalie, we are trying to collaborate. Natalie, she is doing a case right now, and so we are trying to figure out a time to collaborate and connect. So the services that they provide case management, mental health and substance treatment, individual therapy, group therapy, intensive outpatient program, partial hospitalization program. So partial hospitalization is sometimes you go home, so you go to the facility maybe from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. That's how it is in Virginia. I'm not sure how it is in Nevada. And then you sleep at home. A full hospitalization, so inpatient substance treatment, that would be you would live there. Intensive outpatient is sometimes 3 to 5 days a week that you're going and getting individual therapy, you're getting your medication management and all those things. Individual and group therapy is typically that once a week. It's a lower level of care. It's maybe once a week at someone's office. All right. So they provide housing if needed. They do drug and alcohol monitoring as needed, employment support, and continuing education program. So adult education. So if an individual hasn't finished, doesn't have their GED, or if they need some education support, it sounds like they do that. And then there are different team members: the defendant, the participant, the judge, the defense attorney, the district attorney, there's a coordinator, probation officer, case manager, and treatment providers. I wonder if they're gonna bring any of his past treatment providers into the new case. Y'all know I'm gonna be following this one. Like, this is a case that I'm definitely going to follow. I'll definitely, if there are experts, I'm pretty sure there will be some mental health experts that testify. If that information is streamed, and it sounds like the judge is going to allow certain people, they're not gonna allow just anyone to live stream it, but it does sound like, there will be some court feed of his next trial, the attempted capital M, and, the other charges that he's been, charged with. And so confidentiality, your identity and privacy must be protected. You'll be asked to sign a release of information between the program and your treatment providers. So that's where I said normally there would be that confidentiality where the court wouldn't necessarily have access to your treatment records, but if people do mental health court, then they are involved with that. There's some things that the participant has to do. So they have to make sure that um, they do random substance screenings, and they have to pay their fees, restitution, all of that stuff. The goal is that they get a job, because when an individual has employment, there's that often helps with stability and reducing the chances that they might go back. They are not allowed to be on certain medication. And so, for absolutely no reason at all, can they be prescribed any of these medications. They're not allowed to consume alcohol or any other substances. All right. Unacceptable behavior is harming other people, verbal fights, threats, having things that could harm people, or property destruction. And it sounds like could be wrong, but based on the charge that he was being sentenced for, and he was pleading guilty, so he pled that charge down. That's my understanding. That something happened. He had some type of, like, that original charge was a violent charge, and I I hope that his attorney prepared him that he might go back, and maybe because he had been able to not go to jail so many times before, or maybe because I don't know what happened there where he really, really thought that he was not going to get jail time. I don't think the judge did anything wrong. We haven't talked about that. So let me make myself bigger for that one. I don't think the judge did anything wrong. The judge, um the judge was probably frustrated, but to me, her frustration didn't come out in a way that was, like, I don't think it was inappropriate. I know the judge in Florida that oversaw that school pew, that judge that stepped down, and now she's working for her father's, law clinic, um, because that judge did step down because there were allegations that she was unfair to the defense. I don't know, like, there were a bunch of allegations, and so she ended up stepping down from her position. Because to me, it sounded like she was just being hard on him, but, like, he was in front of her again for the same type thing? Uh. And maybe if she had known that he wasn't in a good place mentally, maybe she would have done something different, but I once again, I think people have to accept responsibility for their actions. Rachel, this is a great question. I don't understand why they didn't place him on long acting before leaving. So, they're often some of those long acting ones can have side effects, and they might have thought that he was gonna be consistent with it. If he was having difficulty scheduling, so his defense is probably gonna bring in any place where he had tried to get a medication management appointment, any they're probably going to, like, try to bring that stuff in. In Virginia, we have what's called community services boards, where, it's a state facility where they offer same-day psychiatric appointments, or if you've been discharged from a hospital, if you've come out of a prison, if you've done something like that, sometimes they help people get appointments, but getting an appointment can be very difficult. Um, I don't know if they reached out for help or support. All right. Hey T, becoming unfiltered. Yes, he needs to be responsible for his actions. To what he, to yes. He Yeah, they can't say the judge triggered him. And so I change my language where I don't say my son triggered me, my husband triggered me. What I say is I allowed that to trigger me. I allowed, and that's once again me taking an internal locus of control where I'm not giving my power to anyone else. That's how I view it. I view it as, yes, what they said upset me, and then it's my decision if I stay upset, because I'm going to be held accountable. Because if somebody says something that upsets me and I react, I'm accountable for my thoughts, my behavior. I can't control what other people do and say. I can't. But I can control my reactions, my responses, and if I have difficulty with that, reaching out for help and support to be able to do so. And, Phoenix, I wanna go back to the mic. Imma take a little break for a second. Thank you for, mentioning the mic. So I told y'all I was getting a new mic. I like it. I like it. Thank you all for liking, subbing. Thank you to my members. It's because of you all that I was able to upgrade my mic. If y'all go back, so I started this back in 2020. My early videos are like there. So, but if you want to start a channel, you just have to do it with what you have, and then you can upgrade, you can do what you have to do. So on my Amazon storefront, I now have the mics linked. So if anyone's a content creator, because I was looking for like what mic would be good. And I'll be honest, what I did was CoffeeZilla. It's a Shure mic T. It's Shure. I probably have I have something here. SHUR? I don't know. But, CoffeeZilla, I Googled, "What mic does CoffeeZilla use?" Because I really like the sound of his videos. And I was able to find it. I didn't adjust any settings, so I'm not like Recovery Addict or like the people that know how to edit and tweak stuff. I have no clue like how to do any of that stuff. So these are the factory settings. The camera that I use, so I use a webcam, and so I have all of that stuff linked for my like YouTube, the stuff that I use. Lighting is so huge. So, I turn off the main light and then I have like box lights. Oh, I forgot to turn on my little light. I have like one of those like little backlights. All right, we're gonna get back to the regularly scheduled program. All right, so let me come back to the chat. Oh, thank you, thank you. CoffeeZilla, I really, really like his breakdowns, his videos. When he drops them, they always show up in my algorithm. He had just gotten a job, and Amber, I once again, I think it's a difference in mentality. Like there are people that navigate the world as though people owe them something, and I know nobody owes me a thing. So right now, I have a difficulty happening in my life. There's a particular insurance company that decided that they're just going to stop paying me. Like the insurance company, for whatever reason, I have to fill out a form in order to continue to get paid. So I filled out the form. I'm doing everything I can on my end, and I'm waiting for them to say that they'll start paying me again. Now I don't go and I don't blame them, and I'm not saying you or you like I'm not like now, to the clients that have that insurance, I'm saying, "Hey, I ran into an issue with them. I'm doing what I can to resolve it as soon as possible. We need to put services on hold, like, until I can get it resolved." Like, so and I wish that people knew. So that's why I teach people about shifting from being a victim to being a survivor, because when I'm a victim, I give everyone else my power. And I refuse to do that. I refuse to give that particular insurance company my power and let them ruin like my week. Okay. Now it was because it happened right at the end. It happened like December 28th or something. Like it was significant because there's an amount of money that I'm not gonna get paid. I don't know. I'm gonna try to fight to get it paid. I bill my own stuff. I do a lot of this stuff myself, but what I do in the midst of that is I focus on, hey, what can I control? The perfect thing for me is that insurance company, they're a really small percentage of the clients I have. And they were my lowest payer. What happened, yeah, I'm just gonna be honest. I asked them for a raise. I asked them for a raise, and then they just stopped paying me. And so we'll we'll see. We'll see what happens. And so those stress responses, oops, I did the wrong one. Those stress responses are fight, flight, freeze, or people please, or fawn. Those are the stress responses, and in situations, things can happen where we get stuck, where we kind of get into one of those. The things that I do to stay out of a stress response. So what happens, the stress response, it's our amygdala. So we're gonna psych nerd out for a little bit. All right. We're gonna nerd out for a second. The amygdala is the reptilian part of our brain. It's a very primitive part of the brain. Survival always trumps thinking. So if my brain thinks I'm in danger, it's going to shut down my thinking brain. Now what I do is when that happens, I take a breath because sometimes I feel it coming up. It's like, wait a minute, am I safe? Because if I'm starting to perceive a situation isn't safe, I know I need to breathe. So that's what works for me. Everyone is going to be different because there are times that we can feel unsafe when we are physically safe. And individuals who have been through a lot, their brains are easily sometimes they're more easily put in one of those fight flight. That amygdala gets triggered really really easily, or that survival part of the brain stays on all of the time. And so, yes, so I have a book, uh, Turning Crisis into Clarity: How to Survive or Thrive in the Midst of Uncertainty. I talk about some of that there. I talk about survivor versus victim, and I have an article. I was I was asked to do a article with I'll wait till it drops. And when it drops, I'll put it on the community tab and it's on victim mode. It wasn't Cigna. So I I'll be careful what I say. There are other people that pay me more than them. I am in network with Cigna. It was not them. I did ask them for a raise too. I don't know if I got it, but I didn't get kicked off. So, I don't know. Ooh, I love it when people have books. I read From Panic to Power. I love that. I love that. A book that I really like is Where Do I End and You Begin? And that's about emotional boundaries because sometimes I can think things are other people's responsibility. I can think it's my child's job to make me happy. I can think people at my job are ruining my life. I can think all of these things, but I need to have my own emotional boundaries of, hey, where do I end and their responsibility begin? And sometimes families can enable one another. The movie Encanto was talk about generational trauma. Like Disney did a phenomenal job with that movie because poor little Maribel, like oh, but she was the cycle breaker. She was the one that was going to talk about it. She was going to get to the bottom of what was going on. And often the cycle breaker ends up getting ostracized. In my mind, Bruno was kinda he was the scapegoat. So Bruno was the problem, and he ended up ostracized as well. And then that cycle breaker and the scapegoat, they got together and they got to help change the whole family. And uh so I the book and it's on Amazon. If you want a signed copy, it's on my book. Sorry, it's on my website. But there are things that people can do to build resilience. And so often we talk about post-traumatic stress and we don't talk about post-traumatic growth. We don't talk about resilience. We don't talk about how to turn that pain because I can't control if something bad happens to me. And that's one of the hardest things in life, especially as a parent, knowing that I can't protect my child from everything. I can't. Now, what I can do is I can try to raise an emotionally intelligent child. I can try to create a safe space in my home where if something isn't okay, please, like I really, really want him to come and tell me. I can do these things. And if something happens, he can know, mommy, and we're gonna handle it. Like we're gonna, if something's not okay, we're gonna also like the first step. So like my kiddo, he's having some issues at school. And the first step is to try to let him handle it and for him to go to the teacher. So those are the first steps. If those steps don't work, oh, best believe Dr. Barry's going to be right down at the office. Like we're gonna be having a meeting. We're gonna be having a conversation. And so Nightbot, I'm sorry, Phoenix. So yeah, Nightbot doesn't like all caps. I didn't know Nightbot would I didn't know Nightbot would do that. Phoenix, I because I highlighted that comment. Poor Nightbot. I I had never seen that response. I thought that was funny. I'm sorry, Phoenix. Nightbot got you. I'm sorry. Um, but let me know if y'all have questions because we are starting to wrap up today's stream. Once again, I think that no, I don't think there's, yeah, I don't think that if I was on the jury and we're going to hear everything from everything I've seen and heard so far, I don't have a problem with him being held responsible for what he did. Because even the family said 30 days of stability is good for him. Well, the courts also have a right to, like, protect people, and if somebody can't be stable for more than 30 days, or, like, if they need that level of care, and if they do something like that, if they try to harm someone in that way, there will be consequences for that, and so there just will. There really, really just will, and so, alright. Phoenix, I'm so glad that you laughed about it. I didn't come on, bruh. I didn't know it would say that. I didn't know it would say that. Oh, Nightbot. And then yes, yes, little person. So you have to stay over there. Yes, go ahead. You want the iPad? Is it downstairs or is it up here? Oh, it's right there? So you can grab it. Okay. It probably blended in. All right. Close my door, please. Thank you. All right. Any questions? Any questions? Ooh, great question. Is there a high rate of success for this type of mental illness? So let's talk about that. So, most individuals with mental illness, so with significant, serious mental illness, they are not aggressive towards other people. Okay. I probably see about 20 to 25 people a week. Of those, I have 2 that have a potential for being harmful towards other people. Now, of those people, about 10 could be a risk to themselves, but most of the people that I work with are not a risk or danger to other people. Okay? So that's a misconception. That's where we try to break stigma here, that most people with mental illness, so the time that we hear about bipolar disorder is when somebody's done something. Does that make sense? And there are lots of people that live well with those diagnoses. There are people that take their prescribed medication. So bipolar disorder and schizophrenia, there are medications that help. Those are chemical imbalances. With schizophrenia, I believe it's dopamine. The brain makes too much, and that's where some of the psychosis comes from. And so they put them on antipsychotics. And the antipsychotics, the bad thing with antipsychotics is sometimes they cause weight gain, sometimes sometimes people don't like the way that they feel. Individuals with bipolar disorder are often put on mood stabilizers, and sometimes the mood stabilizers, some individuals with bipolar disorder have issues with consistency because that stable mood, they kind of miss the manic. Like the manic can feel. And so some individuals will try to find other ways to manage it. I'm I used to be so Facebook groups, I have to be careful with them. I was in a Facebook group where one individual talked about using exercise to manage some of their symptoms and that was helpful for them. A lot of people that I work with, they do use medication to help. So there are lots of different diagnoses that can cause difficulties with impulse control. I do think this individual, so he was born substance exposed. I do think that has an impact on brain development. And the part of our brain that where we control impulses is that prefrontal cortex. It's this first part of the brain, and the emotions can shut down our prefrontal cortex. So, with bipolar disorder, with ADHD, sometimes with depression, because spending money, like it feels good, like it can give you a dopamine rush. So, sometimes when people have some of those diagnoses, they may have issues with impulsive spending, impulsive eating. They might have difficulties with impulsivity. One of the biggest diagnoses where impulsivity is like one of the symptoms is ADHD. But in poor impulse control doesn't necessarily mean that a person will be violent. So, like, there's a difference with that, and I always want to make that, um lots of people self-medicate. Laura Christine, thank you for mentioning that. Lots of people will, especially when they're high, because alcohol will sometimes bring them to a like, because it's a depressant. So alcohol is a depressant, and so sometimes people that they'll use that. I've seen people use other substances as well to manage it. Yes, thank you, Rachel Ann. They are also likely to be harmed by other people because often individuals with those diagnoses, they may struggle with being unhoused, or they might struggle with maintaining employment, maintaining things, and they might also be harmed by someone else. All right. Great question. How do you feel about the family saying the officer did the oh, Dr. Patrice, like I skipped over that part. We played it and I didn't mention it. So how do I feel about that? Oh, um, y'all know I try to be political. I'm really, really trying. I wouldn't have said that. And I think that officer could have possibly saved the judge's life. I've heard reports that her hair was being pulled out, and th the person that stepped in, they did a phenomenal job stepping in, and it was the defendant's actions, in my mind, that caused that injury. I wouldn't have said that I did that to myself. I wouldn't like, if I was in that person's shoes, and if I was the one that was injured, I didn't "What? Like, what?" No. So, I did not agree with that statement. That's about as political as that's very much, and not seeing that in that instance, Redden was the abuser. Like, he was the one harming other people, and, mm, so, mm, I think that's where that type of mentality can potentially be very dangerous because the individual doesn't take responsibility for their role in things, and I think it's very important for me to say, "I did that." Like, that was, because then how do I apologize? How do I, excuse me, do restitution? How do I come back after something like that if I think it was that person's fault? Like, it was ooh, that was hard. That was hard. So, I do get political sometimes. I don't mind getting political. I'm an independent, if anyone wants to know. Therapy is also political. I think if you are in therapy, so if my clients ask me how I vote on certain things, or so back before 2020, I wouldn't have answered certain questions. I do think it's important for people that work with me for them to know where I stand on things. Because one time I got a referral for someone that wanted me to work with their child that might have been a part of the LGBTQ community. And what I said was like, hey, just know I'm an affirming like, I don't guide people one way or the other, but like if they are, then okay. But like I'm not 'cause, like, my degree says Regent University, but like I don't I don't agree with Pat Robertson. Yeah. So, yeah. So, I don't mind getting political sometimes, but, I try to stay neutral when it comes to people. So, that family, I think, is doing what they can to support their family member, and I think they're doing the best they can. So, that's my non-judgmental. I try not to judge people, and that's I never want someone in my office to feel judged. We can disagree, and I'm not judge them. validation doesn't mean approval. So I can validate. I can see how you see it that way. I can see how they said what they said. I disagree. All right. All right. Exactly. So that wasn't the way I was trained. I was trained that if somebody asks you, "Who did you vote for?" That you're like, "Oh, so why does is that important to you?" Or like you're supposed to deflect back to them. I was trained in a very way where I think it's important for clients to know. Now I work with people that our political beliefs differ. I work with a client that thinks my colorful flags, they just think they're just colors 'cause, I know the client is very, very religious, but, like, they don't know what the flags mean, and so, like, they're like, "Oh, what are those flags?" And I'm like, "Oh, they're just pretty." Like, 'cause that's not part of our treatment, that's not, like, what we're here to talk about, and so, like, it is what it is. It's so yes, yes, yes. Alright. Y'all are the best. Thank y'all for joining me. I love the new mic, and the silver was cheaper than the black. I love getting a deal, and, the last one was red, the new one, like, she's pretty. I like it. If y'all ever see me with the red one, because now I'm gonna set up a studio at my work office, so if I ever am at work and if there's breaking news, if there's something that I want to cover, then I'm gonna cover it there. I really, really like the silver. The red, I liked it too, but, like, we upgraded, and so, um, Rachel Ann, I agree. I agree. Now, the one thing I don't do so, like, if I'm having a bad day, I don't like, my clients will never ever know. Now, there was a time that I was grieving significantly, and I did have to pause taking clients that were dealing with grief, and any of the clients that I was still working with that were also grieving, I got supervision for to continue those cases, or I had to make a decision based on kind of what was going on in my life. Could I ethically continue to see those clients? But, I if clients ask me, "How was your weekend?" I'm like, "Oh, it was good. Alright, so now we're gonna come back to" like, I don't say, "That's not what we're" I don't know, like, I just I answer the question. If they ask how, you know, my holiday was or anything like that, I don't mind telling them, and, I appreciate you all so much. Our next video will be on Tuesday. I have no clue what it'll be about. Absolutely no clue. But, there'll be some news that breaks, there'll be something. If there's a case that y'all would like me to take a look at, that y'all would like for me to cover, please let me know. The things I'm watching, so Sarah Boone just got another new lawyer, I believe. Like, she had 2 lawyers that replaced. Was it Sarah Boone or was it Jesse Kerskett? Oh my gosh, I get names confused. That might be Jesse Kersketsky. Yes, it was Jessie K. She just got a new lawyer because her 2 newest lawyers that just replaced those lawyers, they had something that came up, and so they had to step down. Yes, Jesse. Jessie K. So, gonna keep an eye on that. I heard Chad Daybell, he possibly his attorney is asking for some additional support or to possibly step down, but if that happens, that's gonna push off stuff. And so, yes, Boone, she's on lawyer number 7. That one's fine for now. I did cover Boone. She's the one that's trying to get a mental health expert to talk about the, like, domestic violence, and that case is a bit of a mess, but I will definitely ooh, I will have to take a look at the new Courtney Clenny. So to remind me, Courtney Clenny, y'all know I'm bad with names. Y'all can't Courtney. Is that is that the OnlyFans? Yes. So, if I don't have anything else, I will probably do that one. I have seen it. Their relationship was toxic. So, Courtney Clenny is the OnlyFans model that, her boyfriend, and that relationship, to me, that the video, in my mind, is very harmful to her defense because she's trying to claim self-defense, but it sounds like from that video that she's the aggressor. And so we definitely can take a look at it. I wouldn't play the whole thing. That video, I think I watched it was hard to watch. Anybody else think it was hard to watch? It was hard to watch. Um uh is that a TV show? The lie detector test of CA. What is that? I thought so. Yeah. So if I don't have anything else, I will definitely cover that one. I will definitely cover that one if I don't have that. Karen, I believe you mentioned this one to me before. That Pablo, that YouTuber that may be going away. Yes. I definitely saw that one. Oh, I haven't watched the Casey Anthony's. Oh, that's what it was. They took a lie detector? Okay. Okay. I might have to watch that too. So, I am gonna figure out what it'll be, and then I will have a video premiere on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Y'all keep an eye out on the community tab because, Natalie and I, we're gonna try to get together. It might be next weekend, it could be tomorrow, it could be later today, like, I don't know, like, Natalie and I are supposed to get together at some point. Um, I will definitely let you all know when that is happening. Alright. I feel like a pastor that's closed out 5 different times. Natalia Grace. So what about the man's, like, disconnecting with her? What about that part? That was the part that had me a little I have to watch the last part of the last episode. I believe the mans are starting to distance themselves from Natalia. That was interesting to me. That was interesting. And so I will figure something out. Thank y'all for sharing your thoughts. Thank y'all for letting me know what y'all would like to see more of. I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate you all so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.